We hear so much about water scarcity, and it often sounds like this huge, unstoppable crisis. And don't get me wrong, it's a massive challenge. But today, we're going to flip the script a little. Instead of just staring at the problem, we're going to dive into the solutions. We're opening up the toolkit we have right now to secure our planet's most vital resource.
So, the real question isn't if we can tackle water scarcity, but how we're going to do it. As you can see here, with demand on the rise, what have we actually got in our toolkit? Well, it turns out we have a whole range of strategies, everything from simple, common-sense conservation to some seriously high-tech engineering. The trick is knowing which tool to use and when.
Okay, so first up, let's talk about the demand side. This is all about getting smarter with the water we already have. It's really that simple. Use less and waste less. And honestly, this is often the best and cheapest place to start.
Now, this approach is super direct. When a drought hits, governments can just step in with rules like the UK's famous hosepipe ban, which means no using hoses for your garden or to wash your car. And it's not just a polite suggestion. If you break the rules, you could be looking at some hefty fines. It's a powerful tool, maybe not the most popular one, but it cuts down on water use and fast.
All right, let's step away from our homes for a second and talk about farms, because they are massive water users. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On the one hand, you've got traditional flood irrigation, which wastes a ton of water to evaporation. But on the other hand, you have drip irrigation, which is a total game changer.
So, how does this thing work? Well, it's all about precision. Just picture a whole network of pipes running through a field, and at the base of every single plant, a tiny little hole delivers just the right amount of water straight to the roots. The water savings are just enormous. Now, what's the catch? It can be pretty expensive to install, and that's a real barrier for some farmers. But man, the efficiency gains are just undeniable.
Back in our homes, there's another smart way to be more efficient: recycling our own water. This brings us to gray water. That's the water from your shower, your sinks, your washing machine. You're not going to drink it, obviously, but it's more than good enough for watering the garden or flushing toilets. It's such a simple idea, right? But it takes a huge strain off our precious drinking water supply.
So we've talked about saving water, but look, just being efficient isn't always going to cut it. So now let's look at the other side of the coin, actually creating new sources of fresh water through some incredible large-scale engineering.
And first up is a real classic, the reservoir. We're talking about these giant, man-made lakes that catch and store river water. Take Kielder Water in the UK, for example. It holds something like 200 billion liters of water. That's just a mind-boggling amount, and it provides a reliable supply for thousands of people, even when it's not raining.
But, and it's a big but, reservoirs come with some major trade-offs. As this chart makes clear, they give you amazing water security. But they are incredibly expensive to build, and hey, they just don't work everywhere. If you're in a really dry climate, there might not be enough rain to even fill one up. So, a great tool, but only for the right place and time.
Okay, now let's talk about recycling on a whole other level. If gray water is from sinks, then black water is what comes from our toilets. Now I know, that sounds intense. But with modern tech, we can actually treat it through this crazy multi-stage cleaning process. It's collected, it goes through some seriously advanced treatment, and what comes out the other end is clean enough to be safely reused.
And listen, this isn't some far-off sci-fi idea. This is happening right now. Just look at this quote from the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park in London. They actually use treated black water to flush toilets and keep all their green spaces looking great. It's a perfect example of a circular economy for water, turning waste right back into a resource.
All right, our final piece of big engineering is desalination. The concept itself is pretty straightforward. Just take the salt out of seawater. The most common way to do it is called reverse osmosis. Picture this. You use a ton of pressure to push seawater through the superfine filter, a membrane that lets the water molecules pass through but traps all the salt.
And why does this matter so much? I mean, just look at this number. A wild 97.5% of all the water on our planet is salt water. Desalination could unlock this basically limitless supply. For really dry countries in the Middle East or parts of Australia, this technology isn't a nice-to-have, it's an absolute lifeline.
But of course, there's a catch, a big one. And that catch is energy. It uses an insane amount of it. Pushing all that water through those membranes takes a huge amount of power, and that makes the whole process really, really expensive. This is the main reason why desalination, for all its potential, is still out of reach for many of the lower-income nations that need it the most.
So we've looked at ways to save water, and we've looked at ways to basically make more of it. Which brings us to our final point. You have to build a whole portfolio of solutions. It's all about finding the right balance for every unique place.
So let's pull it all together. Here's our water security toolkit. We've got managing demand with things like hosepipe bans. We have big infrastructure like reservoirs, making farms more efficient with drip irrigation, saving water at home with gray water, and then the high-tech stuff like recycling wastewater and desalination. And you can see right away, there's no single silver bullet here. The solution is always a mix and match.
And that really leaves us with one last big question. Every single tool in this toolkit has a price tag, whether it's in money, in energy, or in its impact on the environment. The real challenge for communities everywhere isn't about not having options. We clearly do. It's about choosing the right combination of solutions that's affordable, sustainable, and right for them. The real question is, how do we choose?